Alarms rang loudly inside the underground prison. Red lights flashed along the dark metal walls. Guards in black armor marched down the hallway, pulling a man by his arms. His name was Ethan Cole. He kicked, screamed, and tried to break free. "You've made a mistake," he yelled. "I'm not a monster, please, I didn't do anything." But the guards said nothing. Their helmets covered their faces, their boots slammed hard on the steel floor, and they didn't stop walking. Ethan was dragged through a long tunnel. Cold air blew from hidden vents and strange sounds echoed in the distance, deep growls, scratching, and something like laughter. The hallway felt endless. Every 20 steps, there was a thick metal door with a small window. Something moved, behind each window. Ethan could feel eyes watching him, but when he turned to look, he saw only shadows and shapes. One cell had something with claws. Another had a figure with bright green eyes that glowed even in the dark. Finally, the guard stopped in front of a small cell. They opened the door, shoved Ethan inside, and slammed it shut behind him. The lock clicked loudly. Ethan rushed to the door and pounded on it with his fists. "Please, let me out. I'm not supposed to be here," he shouted, but no one answered. He looked around. The cell was small, with gray walls and a single bed bolted to the floor. A blinking red camera watched him from the ceiling. There were no windows, no clock, and no sense of time. Ethan sat on the bed, his heart racing. Just this morning, he had been working as a janitor at a government lab. He cleaned floors, carried trash, and stayed quiet. That's all he ever did. He was a quiet man who lived alone, paid his bills, and never got into trouble. Then something strange happened. A group of agents had shown up, told him he was needed for questioning, and before he knew it, he had been blindfolded, drugged, and brought here, to this place. He didn't know where here was. No one had told him. There were no signs, no windows, and no way to escape. Hours passed, or maybe it was days. He couldn't tell. The lights in his cell never changed. The camera kept blinking. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He just waited. On the second day, or maybe the third, Ethan heard a sound, a voice. It came from the cell next to his, a soft whisper. "Hey," the voice said. "Can you hear me?" Ethan jumped. He moved close to the wall. "Who's there?" he asked. "I'm in the next cell," the voice replied. "I saw them bring you in. You're not one of them, are you?" "One of who?" Ethan asked. "The monsters," the voice whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. "No," he said. "I'm just a janitor. I clean labs, that's all." The voice was silent for a moment. Then it said, "They think you're one of us." "What is this place?" Ethan asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "This is Blackridge," the voice said. "A prison for things that don't belong in the world. They built it to hold monsters, real monsters, not just criminals. Creatures from old legends, from dark experiments, from other worlds. Some of them aren't even alive." Ethan shook his head. "There's been a mistake. I'm not supposed to be here. I didn't do anything." "You think they care?" the voice replied. "No one leaves Blackridge." That night, Ethan heard something worse. A loud, wet growl came from the hallway. Then metal slammed against metal. Something was moving outside the cells. The lights flickered. A low hum filled the prison. Then came the scratching. Long, sharp claws dragged across his cell door. Ethan froze. He didn't even breathe. The creature sniffed at the crack under the door. Then, it moved on. Ethan pressed his back against the wall, heart pounding so loud he thought it might explode. The whispering voice came back. "That one's new," it said. "They brought it in yesterday. Even the guards are afraid of it." "What is it?" Ethan asked. "I don't know," the voice replied, "but it doesn't like noise, and it remembers smells. Be careful." Ethan couldn't sleep that night. Every sound felt like a threat. Every shadow felt alive. He missed the outside world. He missed the sun, the wind, the sound of cars, even the smell of trash. He wanted to believe this was just a bad dream, but it wasn't. It was real, and it was only getting worse. The next day, a small panel opened in his door, and a tray slid, and it held cold gray food and a bottle of water. Ethan didn't want to eat it, but hunger forced him to take a bite. It tasted like nothing. Even the water felt strange, like it had been filtered too many times. He ate in silence while the camera watched him. Then he noticed something. Every time he moved, the red light on the camera blinked faster. When he stood up quickly, it buzzed. When he sat still for too long, the ceiling made a soft clicking noise. He realized he was being studied, not just watched, studied like a test subject. He stood in the middle of the room and shouted, "Why am I here? What do you want from me?" Nothing, just silence and the blinking red eye. That night he heard something strange. Laughter. Not human laughter. Something twisted, something broken. It echoed through the halls, bouncing off the metal walls. Then, the power went out. The lights blinked off. For a full minute, there was only darkness, and in that darkness, Ethan heard the monsters moving. Whispers, footsteps, screams far away. When the lights came back, Ethan saw something written on his wall. It wasn't there before. It was scratched into the metal. One word. Bait. Ethan backed away from the wall, fear freezing his blood. Something was very, very wrong. And it was just beginning. Ethan Cole sat on the cold floor of his cell, staring at the word scratched into the metal wall. Bait. He hadn't written it. No one had entered his cell. The door never opened, not since the day the guards threw him in. And yet, there. It was clear, deep letters dug into steel as if with claws. He couldn't understand how or why. But one thing was now certain. Someone, or something, wanted him to know he was not safe. That night the prison was quiet, almost too quiet. Ethan lay on the hard bed trying not to blink, not to breathe too loudly. Every sound echoed in the dark. At first he thought he imagined it, the soft scratching, but it grew louder. It was coming from the wall behind his head, the one that connected to the next cell. Then came the whisper. "Are you awake?" a voice asked, soft as a breath. Ethan sat up quickly. "Yes. Who are you?" "You can call me Gray," the voice replied. It sounded tired, not angry, not evil, just old. Ethan leaned closer to the wall. "Why are we here? Why did they put me here? I'm not a monster." "I told you," said Gray. "They think you are. This place doesn't make mistakes. If they locked you in Black Ridge, then someone wanted you here." "But I didn't do anything," Ethan whispered sharply. "I'm just a janitor. I clean floors, mop up blood, throw out trash. I'm not a threat to anyone." "Maybe that's the point," Gray said. "Maybe you're not meant to be a prisoner. Maybe you're here to test us." Ethan frowned. "Test you?" Before Gray could answer, a deep howl echoed through the prison. It wasn't like anything Ethan had heard before. It wasn't human. And it wasn't animal either. It was hollow, full of pain, rage, and something else. Something cold. Ethan felt it in his bones. He rushed to the door and peeked through the small window. The hallway outside was dark. Lights flickered overhead. Then he saw something move, fast, black, and heavy. He couldn't see its face, but it crawled on the walls like a spider and left a trail of black mist behind it. Alarms didn't ring. No guards came. "What is that?" Ethan whispered, backing away from the door. "That," said Gray, "is Cell 12's new guest. It doesn't have a name. No one who tried to name it survived." "Why is it here?" "Because someone finally caught it." The creature stopped outside Ethan's door. Its large head turned slowly. For a moment, Ethan thought it was looking straight at him, but there were no eyes, only smooth black skin. Then it moved on. "You're lucky," Gray whispered. "It didn't smell you yet." "What do you mean, yet?" "Once it smells you, it remembers," Gray said. "It doesn't forget and it doesn't stop." Ethan backed away from the door, heart racing. Why would they lock something like that here? Gray paused. "Because it killed other monsters." "What?" It doesn't feed on humans, Gray explained. It feeds on fear. It loves the smell of panic. That's why the prison feeds it new prisoners sometimes. We think it's being tested. Ethan sat back on the bed, his mind spinning. So I'm here to be food? No, Gray said, voice colder now. You're here to attract it. You're the smell. Before Ethan could speak again, something slammed into the wall of his cell. Not once, twice, then again. A loud snarl followed. His entire wall shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then came the worst sound of all, metal bending. Ethan ran to the far corner, curled up and held his breath. Across the wall, Gray whispered, "Don't move. Don't speak. If it hears you..." Silence. For a full minute, nothing. Then slow, heavy, breathing came from the hallway, right outside Ethan's door, followed by scratching. Long, sharp claws dragging across metal. The breathing stopped, then a soft whisper from the other side of the door. "Found you." Ethan's body froze. He wanted to scream but didn't. His hands shook, his eyes filled with tears. He didn't know what the creature looked like up close. He didn't want to. But somehow, just from its voice, he knew. It wasn't human. And it wasn't just a monster. It was something else. Something far worse. Then the creature moved on. Ethan stayed still for what felt like an hour. Only when the red lights returned to normal and the soft hum of electricity returned did he finally stand. "Gray?" he whispered. No answer. "Are you there?" Still silence. Ethan put his ear to the wall. Then finally Gray spoke. "You're lucky, but now it knows you." Ethan didn't feel lucky. He felt like a mouse inside a trap, waiting for the cat to return, he whispered. "How do I get out of here?" Gray sighed. "There is no out. There's only down." "Down?" "There's a door," Gray said. "At the far end of the hall, a black one. No lock, no handle, no guards go near it. No cameras point at it. The creature came from there." "Why would I go there?" "Because," Gray said slowly, "whatever they brought through that door is only the beginning. And if you don't find out what's behind it, you won't last long." Ethan leaned back against the cold wall, staring at the word still scratched above his bed. Bait. Now he knew what it meant. And now the thing hunting him did too. Blackridge wasn't just a prison, it was a trap, and Ethan was standing right in the middle of it. Ethan didn't sleep after the creature whispered at his door. He sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking, eyes fixed on the small blinking red camera. The word bait still scratched on the wall reminded him he was not here by accident. Gray's voice from the next cell had fallen silent again. Every time Ethan called, there was no reply. He hoped Gray was alive, but in Blackridge nothing was safe. Not even the monsters. The next day, or maybe it was night, Ethan heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, slow. It was the first time he'd heard anyone human in hours. A guard was doing rounds. Ethan rushed to the door and looked through the small glass window. The guard walked past his cell holding a long stun weapon. Helmet on, no face visible. But something was wrong. He looked nervous, turning his head quickly, like he was being followed. Every few steps he glanced behind him. Ethan tapped the glass. Hey, I'm not a monster. There's been a mistake. Please help me." The guard didn't stop. He looked once at Ethan, then hurried forward. A few seconds later, he reached the far end of the hallway near the black door, the one Gray had warned about. No handle, no lock, no camera, just a large metal door standing alone at the end of the corridor. The guard paused there. He reached up and touched his helmet like he was talking to someone through a radio. Then the lights flickered. Ethan leaned closer, watching. A low hum filled the hallway. And then, just like that, the guard was gone. Vanished. No flash. No sound. One moment he was standing there, and the next the space was empty. Ethan gasped and stepped back from the door. He stared down the hallway, trying to understand what he'd just seen. He waited. No alarm went off. No one came looking for the guard. It was like he never existed. Then, the lights came back on, and the hallway returned to normal. "Gray," Ethan whispered quickly. "I saw something. A guard disappeared, right in front of the black door." Nothing. He pressed his ear to the wall. Still silence. Was Gray gone too? Ethan paced in his cell trying to think. This place didn't follow rules. Monsters were locked up, yes, but some of them acted more human than the guards. And whatever was behind the black door, it wasn't staying inside anymore. Later, Ethan heard a new sound. Clinking metal, like chains dragging across the floor. He moved to the door and peeked out. In the distance, something crawled past the hallway. Not walking, crawling. He couldn't see the full shape. Only long, thin limbs and a body stretched like melted wax. It moved slow, dragging something heavy. It didn't make a sound, except for the chains. It stopped in front of the empty guard post and sniffed the air. Then it looked straight at Ethan's cell. Ethan jumped back, heart pounding. He covered his mouth to keep from crying out. He didn't dare move. The creature stayed there for a few seconds longer. Then it crawled away, vanishing into the far corner of the hallway. The next meal tray came late. When it finally slid in, Ethan didn't eat. His hands were shaking too much. The water bottle trembled in his grip. He sat on the floor, breathing slow, trying to calm himself. But all he could think about was the guard, how he simply vanished. No scream, no fight, just gone. Later, Ethan tried again. "Gray, please say something." This time the voice returned, but it was weaker than before. "I'm here," Gray whispered. "Barely. What happened to you?" "I talk too much." "They punish you for that. The walls listen." Ethan looked at the camera. The red light blinked once. "They?" he asked. "You mean the guards?" "No," Gray said. "Not them. The prison." Ethan didn't understand. "What do you mean, the prison?" "This place is alive in a way," Gray explained slowly. "Not with blood or a brain, but it watches, it learns. It decides who stays and who disappears." "Like the guard?" Ethan asked. "He just vanished." "Yes," Gray said. "It's been happening more. The deeper you go in, the more the prison changes. Some say the lower floors weren't built by humans." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "Why would anyone build something like this? To trap things that don't belong," Gray said. "To study them, or maybe just to keep them away from the world." "But why am I here?" Ethan asked again. "I'm not like you. I'm not a monster." "Then ask yourself," Gray whispered. "Why do they think you are?" Ethan sat in silence. He thought about his job, the lab, the strange room he had cleaned once, where no one was allowed to speak, the tank filled with dark liquid, the sealed files he accidentally opened on a computer once, a word he read only once before the screen went black. Entity 13. His stomach dropped. Was that why? Did they think he knew something? "Gray," he said, voice shaky. "What's behind the black door?" A long pause. Then Gray whispered, "Something that eats monsters." Ethan's blood turned cold. "Then why bring it here?" "They didn't bring it," Gray said. "It followed something, or someone." Ethan backed away from the wall and sat on the bed again. "What if it followed me?" he asked. Gray didn't answer. The camera blinked faster now, as if reacting to that thought. Ethan looked into the red light, and for the first time, the camera blinked twice, not once. It was listening, and it understood. Ethan whispered under his breath, "I need to find that door." Because now he wasn't just locked in a prison with monsters, he was locked inside a living trap, and it was watching his every move. Ethan woke up to a low humming sound that filled the air like a distant machine warming up. He sat up, heart already beating fast. He didn't know what time it was. There were no clocks, no sunlight, only the endless red blinking of the camera above his door. But something was different this time. He felt it in his chest. The air was heavier. The silence wasn't normal. It was waiting. He walked to the door and looked out through the small window. The hallway looked the same. Dim lights, long shadows, and that black door at the end of the corridor. But today, there was another door, one that hadn't been there yesterday. It was smaller, gray, and near the middle of the hall, between the cells. Just standing there, no label, no number. It hadn't made a sound when it appeared. No one had opened it. It was just there now. Ethan stepped back. "Gray, are you awake?" he whispered. No answer. He knocked softly on the wall. "Gray?" After a few seconds, Gray's voice came, rough and tired. "I see it too." "That door, was it always there?" "No," Gray said. "It wasn't." "Then how?" "This place shifts," Gray explained. "Rooms appear, walls move, doors open and close without sound. Some lead to real places, others lead to nothing or worse." Ethan stared at the new door. "What if that's the way out? Or a way deeper in," Gray warned. "I can't stay here forever. Whatever's in cell 12, it knows me now. It wants me." Gray paused. "Then you'll have to choose. That door is open now. But it won't be forever." Ethan looked again. He hadn't even noticed at first, but the gray door was slightly open. A small line of black between it and the frame. Just enough to see that the room inside was completely dark. Suddenly all the hallway lights flickered again. A loud sound echoed through the prison. A scream. Not human. Not monster. Something between. It came from the deeper part of the prison, far past the black door. It made Ethan's bones hurt. The lights stayed off for a moment longer this time. When they came back on, Ethan noticed something new. His door was unlocked. The red light above it had turned green. He stepped back, eyes wide. This had never happened before. He waited for a voice, a guard, an alarm, anything. But the hallway remained still. The silence felt even worse now. Slowly, carefully, Ethan touched the handle. It moved. He pushed it open. For the first time since being thrown into Blackridge, Ethan stepped into the hallway. The floor was colder than he expected. His bare feet felt every crack and bump. He looked around. The camera above his cell blinked twice, then stopped. "Gray," he whispered through the wall one last time. "I'm going." "Be careful," Gray replied. Ethan nodded, even though Gray couldn't see him. He turned and crept toward the new door. Every step felt louder than it should have. He passed other cells. Some had windows. He dared not look inside. One had dark stains on the floor outside. Another had deep claw marks along the walls. He walked faster. Finally, he reached the new door. He touched it. It was warm. Strange. Everything else in Blackridge was always cold, metal, stone, steel. But this door, steel. But this, it felt alive. He pushed it open a little more and stepped inside. Total darkness. The door closed behind him without a sound. Ethan's breath echoed in the small space. He reached out, feeling the walls. Smooth metal, tight corridor. He walked, slowly, one hand brushing the wall to stay balanced. The silence was so thick he could hear his own heartbeat. Then he saw a light. Very faint, blue blinking slowly. He moved toward it and found a panel, a screen built into the wall. Words appeared on it. Subject 16, active, observation in progress. More words followed. Warning, human detected in Zone 9. Ethan didn't know what that meant, but suddenly the wall next to the screen hissed. A door slid open. Inside, he found a control room. Empty. A large window showed a cell on the other side. Inside that cell was a giant tank filled with thick black liquid, and something floating inside it. A body, not human. It was pale, with many limbs, a mouth sealed shut with metal, and long wires running from its chest into the walls. Its eyes were open, glowing faintly blue. It was watching him. Ethan stepped back. He had seen this before. That one day in the lab, when he accidentally opened the wrong file, the word Entity 13 had flashed on the screen. This was it. This was what followed. Him. Suddenly the tank hissed, the liquid started draining, the body inside the tank began to move. Ethan turned and ran. Back into the dark hallway, back toward the first door. But it was gone. The wall was sealed now. No door. No way out. He was trapped. The lights flickered again. A deep sound like breathing filled the hallway. Behind him, the tank burst open, and Ethan ran into the darkness. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had seen the thing Blackridge was truly afraid of, not a monster, not a prisoner, a god. And now, it was awake. Ethan woke up to a low humming sound that filled the air like a distant machine warming up. He sat up, heart already beating fast. He didn't know what time it was. There were no clocks, no sunlight, only the endless red blinking of the camera above his door. But something was different this time. He felt it in his chest. The air was heavier. The silence wasn't normal. It was waiting. He walked to the door and looked out through the small window. The hallway looked the same. Dim lights, long shadows, and that black door at the end of the corridor. But today, there was another door, one that hadn't been there yesterday. It was smaller, gray, and near the middle of the hall, between the cells. Just standing there, no label, no number. It hadn't made a sound when it appeared. No one had opened it. It was just there now. Ethan stepped back. "Gray, are you awake?" he whispered. No answer. He knocked softly on the wall. "Gray?" After a few seconds, Gray's voice came, rough and tired. "I see it too." "That door, was it always there?" "No," Gray said. "It wasn't." "Then how?" "This place shifts," Gray explained. "Rooms appear, walls move, doors open and close without sound. Some lead to real places, others lead to nothing or worse." Ethan stared at the new door. "What if that's the way out? Or a way deeper in," Gray warned. "I can't stay here forever. Whatever's in cell 12, it knows me now. It wants me." Gray paused. "Then you'll have to choose. That door is open now. But it won't be forever." Ethan looked again. He hadn't even noticed at first, but the gray door was slightly open. A small line of black between it and the frame. Just enough to see that the room inside was completely dark. Suddenly all the hallway lights flickered again. A loud sound echoed through the prison. A scream. Not human. Not monster. Something between. It came from the deeper part of the prison, far past the black door. It made Ethan's bones hurt. The lights stayed off for a moment longer this time. When they came back on, Ethan noticed something new. His door was unlocked. The red light above it had turned green. He stepped back, eyes wide. This had never happened before. He waited for a voice, a guard, an alarm, anything. But the hallway remained still. The silence felt even worse now. Slowly, carefully, Ethan touched the handle. It moved. He pushed it open. For the first time since being thrown into Blackridge, Ethan stepped into the hallway. The floor was colder than he expected. His bare feet felt every crack and bump. He looked around. The camera above his cell blinked twice, then stopped. "Gray," he whispered through the wall one last time. "I'm going." "Be careful," Gray replied. Ethan nodded, even though Gray couldn't see him. He turned and crept toward the new door. Every step felt louder than it should have. He passed other cells. Some had windows. He dared not look inside. One had dark stains on the floor outside. Another had deep claw marks along the walls. He walked faster. Finally, he reached the new door. He touched it. It was warm. Strange. Everything else in Blackridge was always cold, metal, stone, steel. But this door, steel. But this, it felt alive. He pushed it open a little more and stepped inside. Total darkness. The door closed behind him without a sound. Ethan's breath echoed in the small space. He reached out, feeling the walls. Smooth metal, tight corridor. He walked, slowly, one hand brushing the wall to stay balanced. The silence was so thick he could hear his own heartbeat. Then he saw a light. Very faint, blue blinking slowly. He moved toward it and found a panel, a screen built into the wall. Words appeared on it. Subject 16, active, observation in progress. More words followed. Warning, human detected in Zone 9. Ethan didn't know what that meant, but suddenly the wall next to the screen hissed. A door slid open. Inside, he found a control room. Empty. A large window showed a cell on the other side. Inside that cell was a giant tank filled with thick black liquid, and something floating inside it. A body, not human. It was pale, with many limbs, a mouth sealed shut with metal, and long wires running from its chest into the walls. Its eyes were open, glowing faintly blue. It was watching him. Ethan stepped back. He had seen this before. That one day in the lab, when he accidentally opened the wrong file. The word Entity 13 had flashed on the screen. This was it. This was what followed. Him. Suddenly the tank hissed. The liquid started draining. The body inside the tank began to move. Ethan turned and ran. Back into the dark hallway, back toward the first door. But it was gone. The wall was sealed now. No door. No way out. He was trapped. The lights flickered again. A deep sound like breathing filled the hallway. Behind him, the tank burst open, and Ethan ran into the darkness. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had seen the thing Blackridge was truly afraid of, not a monster, not a prisoner, a god. And now, it was awake. Everything went black. Ethan stood frozen, surrounded by darkness. The air felt heavy, almost alive. He could hear the guards yelling, gunfire echoing through the chamber, and metal boots running across the floor. But none of it sounded real. It was like he was deep underwater, listening to the world fade away. Then slowly, the darkness began to move, not around him, but inside him. He dropped to his knees, holding his head. A sharp pain filled his mind. The voice was back, louder than ever. "You can't escape me, Ethan. You are me." "No," Ethan whispered. "I'm not like you." But the line was already blurry. He could feel the thing's thoughts mixing with his, memories that weren't his, feelings that didn't belong to him, hate, hunger, power. He clenched his fists and forced himself to stand. In the distance, red emergency lights flickered on. The black creature, the copy of him, was gone. The chamber was half destroyed. Broken glass and dark liquid covered the floor. The guards were gone too. Silent bodies lay scattered around the room, their faces twisted in fear. Ethan stumbled toward the only exit still open. An emergency stairwell blinked with a green light. He knew this might be his last chance. He had to get out of Blackridge before the thing inside him fully woke up. The stairwell was narrow and metal. Each step echoed like a warning. As he climbed up, flashes of memory struck him. Not his memories, its memories. Darkness, hunger, the moment it touched his mind, the moment it chose him. When he reached the top of the stairs, he pushed open the heavy door and stepped into a long hallway. This one was different, newer, clean. The walls were smooth metal and security cameras followed his every move. But something was off. No guards, no alarms, no voices. Then he saw it. A giant metal door ahead, painted with yellow warning signs and the word exit. He ran to it and pushed hard. It didn't move. A voice came from above. "Ethan Cole," it said calmly. "You are not authorized to leave." He looked up. A camera turned toward him. "I'm not staying," Ethan growled. "We can't let you go," the voice replied. "You're carrying it. You're infected." Ethan slammed his fist against the door. "I didn't choose this. I didn't ask for this." "Correct," the voice said. But it chose you. Suddenly, gas began to fill the hallway. White, hissing, choking. Ethan backed away, coughing. He had to move. He saw a vent above the door and jumped, grabbing the edge and pulling himself up. The screws were loose. He kicked until the vent popped open, then crawled inside. The vent was tight and hot. Every inch forward burned his arms and knees. But he didn't stop. He moved through the darkness, heart racing. The voice followed him, echoing through speakers hidden in the walls. "We built this place to trap monsters," it said. "But we were wrong. Some monsters grow inside." Ethan kept crawling. He could feel something behind him, like a shadow following him through the metal. The copy. The thing that wore his face. He reached a grate and looked down. Below was a control room, screens everywhere. Dozens of scientists stood around looking worried. On one screen, Ethan saw himself. From the hallway from minutes ago, they were watching everything. Ethan kicked the grate open and dropped down. The scientists screamed. Some ran, others pressed alarms. But Ethan didn't attack. He raised his hands. "I want out," he said. "Let me go, or I'll let it out too." One of the men, older and calm, stepped forward. "You don't understand. If you leave this place, it goes with you." Ethan nodded. "Then maybe this place should burn." The old man paused. "You'd destroy the whole prison? Kill everyone?" "You already killed me," Ethan said. "The moment you locked me in with that thing." The man looked sad. We're trying to protect the world." Ethan stepped closer. "Then let me go, or the world won't matter." Suddenly, another screen lit up. The copy of Ethan, black, twisted, smiling, was standing in the same hallway Ethan had left behind. Its eyes glowed. It waved at the camera, and then it spoke. "Let him go," it whispered. "He's earned it." The room fell silent. The old man swallowed hard. "You don't get it," Ethan said. "I'm not the same anymore, but if you keep me here, the thing inside me wins." The man pressed a button. The exit door opened. Ethan stared at it. A chance. Freedom. But was it? He walked slowly down the hall toward the light. As he stepped outside for the first time in weeks, he felt the sun on his face, wind, trees, real air. But inside his head, the voice whispered again, "Free at last." Ethan looked down at his hands. They were still his, still human. But for how long? The thing wasn't gone. It was just quiet. Waiting. And as he walked into the world, leaving Blackridge behind, he knew this wasn't over. It was just the beginning. The road was empty as Ethan walked away from Blackridge. The prison stood far behind him now, hidden in the forest like a wound no one wanted to see. The sun was rising, but it didn't feel warm. It felt sharp, like the light was trying to burn away whatever was left of the thing inside him. Birds flew overhead. Leaves moved in the wind. But even in this calm, Ethan knew something was wrong. His thoughts weren't his alone anymore. Every step he took, he felt a second mind walking with him, inside him. It didn't speak much now. It didn't need to. It had learned him, his memories, his fears, his voice. It was quiet because it was patient, watching, growing. He reached a small gas station after a few hours. Dusty, old, and empty. A payphone stood near the wall. He picked it up and dialed the only number he remembered, his sister's. The phone rang once, twice, and then someone picked up. "Hello?" Ethan's voice cracked. "It's me." There was silence. "Ethan, you've been missing for weeks. The police said you were dead. Where have you?" "I can't talk long," he interrupted. "I need you to listen. Don't tell anyone I called, and whatever happens, don't come looking for me." She paused. "Ethan, what's going on?" "I got out," he said, "but something got out with me." Then he hung up. He stood still, staring at the phone, heart pounding. It had taken everything in him to make that call, but part of him already regretted it. He could feel it waking up inside again. Angry. Curious. "You're still weak," it whispered in his mind. Still holding on to the past, he shook his head. No, I'm still me. But how long could he keep saying that? Later that night, Ethan found an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. He lit a small fire, sat on the floor, and pulled out a broken mirror from a drawer. He stared into it. The face staring back was his, but not quite. The eyes looked colder, the smile sharper, and when he blinked, the reflection didn't. It smiled and spoke. You brought me home, Ethan. That was your choice. Ethan dropped the mirror and backed away. You're not real. But I am, it said. And soon, the world will know it. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. His skin pulsed, his fingers twitched. Black veins ran up his arms, for a second, then disappeared. He screamed and fell to the floor. No, you're not taking me. But the voice laughed. I don't have to. You let me in. You opened the door. The next day, Ethan woke up cold and shaking. His nose was bleeding, the fire was out, and his hands were stained black. Not with dirt, with something else. That's when he saw the footprints. Outside the cabin in the mud were deep clawed prints, far too large to be his, and they were walking away. Something had stepped out of him during the night, or maybe it never needed to stay inside him at all. He followed the tracks, heart racing. They led into the trees, twisting and turning. He walked for hours until he reached a small town. Quiet, peaceful, but something was wrong. People stood still on the sidewalks, frozen, blank expressions, children staring into space, dogs not barking, birds not singing. He stepped closer to a woman and touched her shoulder. She turned slowly and numb, and her eyes were empty, not blind, not dead, just gone. Then he heard it, the whisper, everywhere, in the trees, in the air, in the people. We are Ethan. We are free. He stumbled back. The thing had already begun spreading. It didn't need his body anymore. It had used him to get out, and now it was jumping to others. Copying. Controlling. He had become patient zero, a carrier. And now the infection wasn't trapped in a prison. It was loose in the world. He ran through the streets yelling for help, for anyone to listen, but no one moved. They just watched him with hollow eyes like puppets waiting for strings. At the center of town, he found something written on a wall in black ink. No, not ink. Blood. The monster was never in the prison. The monster was in him. Ethan dropped to his knees. This wasn't just a creature, it was an idea. A virus made of thought and shadow. Something ancient and clever. It didn't destroy. It replaced. It didn't kill, it wore you, and now it was everywhere. Back in Blackridge, they thought locking it away would be enough. But they forgot one rule. You can't cage what isn't flesh. You can't contain a mind that wants to become. And Ethan, once just a janitor, and was now the beginning of the end. He looked up at the sky. Clouds moved fast. The air was thick. Something was changing. Something big. He stood and whispered to himself, one last time, I'm still human. But the voice inside him only smiled and said, not for long.